Some sad news to report. The NFL lost a great one, and the Browns lost a franchise icon. Jim Brown passed away at the age of 87. Brown was one of the Browns Hall of Famers who helped get the franchise back to Cleveland in 1999 after it moved away to Baltimore in 1995. Here is how Jim Brown was introduced to the crowd in 1999 at the Countdown to the Browns celebration.
A first-round draft pick from Syracuse and the NFL Rookie of the Year in 1957, he made the Pro Bowl every year of his career. An 8-time rushing champion, he led the NFL in touchdowns a record 5 times. He was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1971. His uniform number will never be worn by another Cleveland Brown. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest running back in NFL history, number 32, Jim Brown.
Jim Brown passed away today at the age of 87. A statement from Dee and Jimmy Haslam. Jim Brown, a true icon not only of the Cleveland Browns but the entire NFL, was certainly the greatest to ever put on a Browns uniform, arguably one of the greatest players in NFL history. Jim was one of the reasons the Browns have such a tremendous fan base today. So many fans grew up watching him just dominate every time he stepped on the field, and countless accolades on the field only tell you a small part of the story. Really, Jim Brown was one of the first athletes who was involved in social justice. It involved Muhammad Ali. They had a big meeting here in Cleveland when Muhammad Ali refused to sign up for the draft. Jim Brown was a guy that was always intelligent, always articulate, always had an opinion. Take a listen to what he said back in 1999 about the Browns coming back to Cleveland, a movement that he had a lot to do with.
I'm happy to be here because I respect all of these men. I respect the transition of teams getting the Browns back. But I don't always compare because I think that in any era you have the characteristics of that era. So the passion that we felt, we knew nothing about what was going to happen. We played the game because of the game, and we had great respect for each other, and we didn't compete as such off the field as who was better and who wasn't better. We were all very happy that we all had varying skills in various positions. And I would like to say, even though there are a lot of things generally today that I don't like, I think the game has come a long ways for the spectators. I think the people are filling the stadiums. I think the Super Bowl is the greatest event in sports, and we have to give credit to all of those things. So I just don't want to be sitting here saying that nothing is good today. There's a lot of things that are very good. In any era, you have individuals that are passionate. But if I might add one negative factor, I don't think it's free agency that has really turned the game around. I think the agents themselves it hasn't been a positive factor for the league because their agenda will never be for the league. It will always be for their particular client. And when they have the power of the decision-making power that they have, they can make decisions based on money alone. And anytime you make decisions based on money alone, it's not going to necessarily be good for your product.
Again, that was Jim Brown back in 1999. Passed away today at the age of 87. Let's welcome in Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan. Spencer, I had the pleasure of interviewing him as a young reporter, and he was, without question, the most intimidating guy until he decided you were all right. And once he decided you were all right, he was absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, you're very fortunate to have had that experience. I can't say I ever got a chance to meet Jim Brown, but and also full disclosure, like not being a Cleveland native, being someone who came to college out here and then ended up settling down out here. I knew of Jim Brown being an NFL fan growing up, but it wasn't until I really lived in Cleveland and became part of this great society and the sports culture out here. And you hear stories from, older Browns fans or fans that were my age who had it passed down to them from generations before who would talk about Jim Brown. And then you sort of read more about him and you see more of his highlights. And he was obviously an incredible figure. I think if you are making, without question, if you're trying to make a Cleveland sports Mount Rushmore, I think him and LeBron James are number 1 and 2 in some order, right? And, it's interesting. I saw LeBron, I think before I jumped on here, he put out a statement on Instagram about Jim Brown and his impact, just being a young, black kid growing up in Northeast Ohio. He resonated with a lot of people with the work he did, obviously speaking out for social injustice and that sort of thing. I know that was something the Browns certainly noted as well. And that goes a long way as well. I think his impact goes beyond just on the football field, but we know it sort of starts there. I think that line in the statement that you read from Jimmy and Dee Haslam about how, if you basically just that his impact was so massive, and his ability to resonate from when you think about the Browns history, he comes to mind. I think that's one of the first things I think of is just when you think about the history of the Browns, he is number 1 on the list of people that you think of, spanning a generation of Browns fan. He had his era where he played in the 50s and 60s, but the team, I think that not that there wasn't a history before that, but I think that is the first thing people go back to is the days of Jim Brown, and then it obviously transpires into more memories and the cardiac kids and all these different things. But yeah, I think the history certainly starts with Jim Brown and this organization, and he has been an icon in this town for a long, long time. So certainly rest in peace to him. You know what he means to this city and to this fan base. And some sad news, unexpected. I mean, you guys sent me the rundown for the show today, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere that one came down. So I'm glad we're getting a chance to talk about it, though, for sure.
All right. So again, Jim Brown passes away at the age of 87, and a loss for not only the Browns but the NFL.